Hello and welcome back to the Unfiltered Athlete. This is the first episode in season number 2 and episode 11 overall. In today's show, I'm joined by all-round athlete Jake Hendry, and we talk about his upbringing, training environments, and transitioning from CrossFit to a more endurance-focused style of training for his upcoming goals. Please show some support for the show by subscribing and hitting the like button, and don't be afraid to leave a comment if you enjoyed today's episode. So this is now season 2 of the Unfiltered Athlete. So this will be the 11th episode. So Jake Hendry is with me today. You are my first guest in season number 2, and I'm actually really happy that I've made it to the 11th episode, because apparently stats are if you make it past 10 episodes, then you can actually carry on. If you don't, then you're done for. So Jake's joining me today. Really happy to have him with me to talk about his journey through fitness so far, and basically the ups and downs you've had, the trials and tribulations, any injury setbacks, your training, and how you've transitioned from sort of your original sports in Australia and into CrossFit, and through now to what we're probably looking at, like endurance, sort of high rocks kind of thing. So to start us off, mate, basically just give us like a little bit of a breakdown of your childhood. Obviously being an Aussie, very sporting, cultured country. So you had a lot of access to sports growing up, and what took your fancy? What was you pushed towards, or what did you choose when you were younger?
Yeah, so growing up, obviously, like you said, being in Oz, like there's sport and active culture everywhere. So like grew up swimming, doing like running around at the park with your mates is just a normal thing. Obviously you do as a kid, but then it's even more expressed in Oz because everything's so accessible. There's parks everywhere, there's beaches everywhere. It's way more active lifestyle. But growing up, I started playing rugby league when I was 4. Out here, I just say I played rugby because it's easier to explain. But if you've been to Oz, or you're from Oz, or you know the sports, you know there's a bit of a difference. Rugby league I played from when I was 4 to when I was 19. I represented Italy in under 21s and under 19s, but typical, I could have made it, should have, could have, would have. Had a few injuries and stuff, but ended up deciding like I was right, if I'm honest with myself, right on the edge, being good enough to make it to a semi-professional, professional level, but I probably wasn't quite good enough. So I realized also at that time that I was realizing I'm not quite good enough. I'm right on the cusp. Like I actually really enjoyed the training side more than the sport itself. And I didn't start to realize that till towards the end. So throughout my whole childhood, I did like surf lifesaving and all these other little things. I would play touch footy in summer. I didn't really go into any other sports apart from rugby league. Obviously we trained a lot for that. There was times where I was playing representative footy, so I'd train 4 or 5 times a week, play twice a week. So it was pretty full on in terms of like training and playing 5-6 days a week. But yeah, later in towards that like career, I suppose, has started to have little injuries and just started to get to the point where I was like, okay, do I want to try and be that person who just tries to make footy and not have a career, or do I need to go and give myself a career? So I chose obviously the career path, even though I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just went into like being an electrician for a bit. And then I just realized like I kept coming back to that love that I found at footy for training. I would always love like the conditioning sessions at training and like the pre-season training. I would love all that, and everyone else hated it. So yeah, I think that's what sort of shaped my career also, as well as like my training in the future, what that brought.
So 3 things that I noticed from what you said there. First thing I wanted to go on is obviously in terms of the culture of sport in Oz. How important do you think that is moving forward, like from when you have a family, like in terms of the surrounding and the environment that your future kids are going to have? How important do you think it is for kids to be, have access to sports growing up? Like what, because I feel lucky. Like when I say that, that's what I mean from the question. I feel lucky that I had so many opportunities to try sport. And not only for the love of it, but also I think it's so important, when you are growing up, just to learn, complex skills, coordination and stuff like that. And obviously, it transitions over to, I also think that the dedication that you put into sport also transitions over into other worldly aspects, as it were. So how important was it to you to have that? Because obviously then you said you went into being an electrician. That was the second thing, because I also think that's quite different.
No one knows that,
quite different. And also, you also said that you represented Italy under 21. Where's the connection there to Italy?
So my mum's Italian, and that was just through like a competition called the Heritage Cup. So it was like the under-19s version of like a mini World Cup. Wasn't like traveling across the world or anything. It was in Australia, but that was a really cool experience to be able to represent like my country, and it was pretty much for everyone that's within Australia, and everyone playing rugby league in Australia. A lot of us are obviously born there, but then we have different cultures and able to represent different areas of the world. So there was like a lot of Tongan kids, a lot of Kiwi kids, and Europeans, all that kind of stuff. So that was a cool opportunity that I got. But yeah, my mum's Italian, so I got to
speak Italian.
No, I need to learn. I've never even been, but it was funny looking at the team list. You've got like all these Italian names, and then obviously it's my mum's side, so my last name is Hendry, and they're like, "This is the wrong team." But yeah, I think like going back to what you said about having access as a kid to be able to go and play all different sports and everything like that. I think there's two sides of it, like the structured side in terms of like going and physically playing a sport in a team or individually, but then also just being in an area or an environment where, or even just making the most of your area or environment to go outside and play. And you see obviously now like with social media and all that kind of stuff and screens are kind of taking over, right?
Crazy.
So I think that's definitely something that I am grateful that I had growing up. I was always outside playing with my friends and doing stuff out in the yard or at the park or whatever. And I think for me as like a future parent, that's something that would be really important to me. Like I wouldn't ever force my children to do anything, but I would try and encourage them to play a sport, be active. Yeah. I think one thing that I learned as well, which I'm sure we'll get into, like transitioning into CrossFit, is like I only ever played team sports. So when I transitioned to CrossFit, I was like 23, 22, and it was the first time I played an individual sport or competed in individual sport. And then I had to relearn all of that stuff as well, doing it on my own. It's quite a different experience. So I think as a kid growing up, especially in the formative years, if you can do an individual sport as well as a team sport, or try and do a bit of both throughout your childhood, you're going to get not only, like you're saying, like the physical benefits, but also the dedication, the commitment, and like just the mental resilience you get from the ups and downs of it, you know, and having to either interact with a team or go through the ups and downs by yourself. Like you're the only one on the court or you're the only one out on the field. You have to deal with the positives, but you also have to deal with the negatives, and I think that teaches people a lot of life lessons. So I think that's super important.
No, I completely agree, and I think obviously, you know, dealing with things as an individual is one thing, but also dealing with things as a team where you have to have communication and social skills to do so. That also I think that's a great learning point for kids to have when they grow up, because especially when you're a kid, especially if you're competitive, and I can speak from experience myself, like you want to win, and it's not nice to lose.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to lose, and if you don't learn to lose properly, that can also shape the kind of character that you have moving forward. And I think it is, you know, you can have all this positive reinforcement of everything and be like, you know, winners never quit and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes, you know, unfortunately, there are people that are better than you. And sometimes there are teams that are better than you, or you don't play very well and you do lose. That's something you have to learn. And it can shape you and obviously make you a better person, you know, for failing, as it were, because then you know what you need to overcome. To go back to your trade, you know, as a tradie, I feel that's like a common thing in us. Like when I used to live there, my training used to be morning and evening. So for me, a lot of my mates that I used to play with, they had full-time jobs as well. Because obviously I was coming over from the UK, and obviously all my teammates were Aussies, so they worked during the day and had full-time jobs, and that's why we trained so early in the morning and late at night, so that they could get the training in. But I actually got a job myself doing labour. Then I worked in painting and decorating and stuff, just to keep myself occupied. It's actually quite a fun culture to be involved.
It is, it is cool. It's like I always say, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I finished school. I finished school when I was 17. I just thought, well, what's the highest paying trade? I'm just going to go and do that. Like, I also didn't really want to clean out poo out of pipes, so I didn't want to be a plumber. And like, it didn't even interest me in the slightest. You know, like I just needed a career path, and I thought, okay, at least like if I chase financial goals, then that obviously everyone realizes what they want to do in life at different points. And at that point, I had no idea. And then I went and did that for 2 years, and I think it's what everyone in Oz does if they don't know what they want to do. They just go and do a trade. And then to me, like I got 2 years in, and it started to scare me that I was like, I'm just going to be doing this for the rest of my life, like climbing into roofs. But every day when I was, like you said before, like when I was a tradie, every single day, even if I worked 4 a.m. to 4 p.m, I'd go straight to the gym, straight after. And I thought, like, no matter how tired I was, I always wanted to go to the gym. And back then it was like, I was like 17, 18, so I was just trying to be Ronnie Coleman and lift as much weight as I could, probably with terrible form. But I still, even back then, did a lot of like running and row, ski, bike, like just a bit of like functional training, I guess. And that was when the whole like functional fitness stuff started to take off. You saw more like F45 and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no matter what, when I was a tradie, I always went to train. So I always kept that aspect that I learned, like we were saying, as a kid from footy. I learned a lot of discipline and a lot of commitment to training through playing footy. Like you show up on time, you work hard, and I've kind of carried that through my whole life up until now. And like you've seen, like I'm always pretty consistent with my training. I'm always pretty disciplined with it, and I think that's just something that I was lucky enough to learn as a kid.
Yeah, I think like there is a fine line as well between, you know, like I say, finding the highest paid job and also balancing that health and fitness at the same time, because some people get, you know, not necessarily, I can't say go down the wrong route, 'cause it is dependent on what's, you know, someone wants. If someone wants to work a lot more and earn a lot of money, that's absolutely fine. But then, you know, health and fitness, keeping yourself active, for me personally, I feel that, you know, it's a non-negotiable of it keeps my clarity clearer. You know, I'm functioning better, which means if I'm functioning better, I'm more productive anyway. And obviously then I don't get in that slump. And I've been down that route where, you know, work's taken over years ago when I was younger, and I didn't get to train as much, and I'd put on weight and I didn't feel great. And it makes such a big difference mentally for you to sort of like carry on with work and obviously then at least focus on what you do want. And obviously if you were in that tradie, and it's probably what made it, what made it for you is, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I want to be active.
Like I think I was quite lucky to realise that at a young age. Like I was going to work every day, and I remember I literally walked into my job one day. I was living at home at the time, 'cause I was just out of school, and I walked in and just went like, F this, I'm leaving. Like, I didn't even tell my parents, nothing. I literally walked up to my boss, told him to shove it. And I was like, well, now I don't have a job. So I literally walked around my area. I just drove around my area. In Oz, you're on your P plates. You probably know what that means. It means like your provisional license. So I was just driving around in this little shitbox of a car in a tradie uniform, and I was going to every gym. And I was like, I'll do anything. Like, my plan was in my head, all right, if I get a job, I can pay to do my studies online. I can do all that online while I'm working and funding myself. So I did that, and I was lucky enough to get a job in a Virgin Active. I was literally operations, cleaning toilets, and sales. Like I did sales for 2 years, which really was good for me as well, talking about like shaping your future in terms of, it taught me to be able to speak to people. Like when I was a kid, I was a little bit overweight, and then as I got further through school, I leaned out and everything, but I still had that reserved, introverted kind of nature. So that really brought me out of my shell. But then I just sort of kept going through the fitness industry, but at no point was I thinking like, oh, I'm not earning much money. I just enjoyed doing what I was doing. And I think, like I always say, and this is a very cliche thing that a lot of people will talk about, but if you don't feel like you're working, like to me, I wake up and to me every day's a weekend. Like I had someone message me this morning, they were like, do you work? And I was like, yeah, but like I'm able to structure it in a way that's different to you. I don't have a 9 to 5. Yeah. No,
I completely get that. What's the old saying? Don't love your job you love. Is that the?
Yeah.
No, just joking. No, but I mean, I understand. Like, if you find a job that you do love, you won't work a day in your life, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's why I've always stayed in fitness. To be honest with you, like, and then but I mean, I'm over 2 decades now in this fitness industry, and I still love it just as much. And that's why I've obviously started this as well, because I just want to talk about people's journeys, talk about sports, talk about fitness, talk about training methods and what they, why it's important for this, why it's important for that, and just basically obviously get the message out there as to, the lifestyle that you can lead within fitness, and also what it takes to get to certain levels, as it were.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people do sit at home, on the sofa watching people on TV going, well, I could do that, that's easy. But really, when you actually strip it down and you look back at everything that they've done, the blood, sweat and tears that have gone into training, and the ups and the downs, it's a lot.
Just on that, like I think as well, like I said, I was quite lucky to figure it out when I was younger. Like being in the industry for longer and longer, you speak to people, like I know a couple of people recently that were teachers and they're like, no, I'm out. And they're like 30 and they're like, no, I'm out. I'm going to go start a gym, or I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go just become a coach because they enjoyed doing it. So I think I was very lucky to realize at like 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, this is not what I want to do and this is what I want to do. But like you're saying as well, yes, it is hard to do the things that like athletes do, but I always tell people like there's no difference between me and you or between an elite athlete and me. We're both people, we're all people, you know, and it's whatever you put in, you're going to get out.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree, completely agree. Like I think that's what I consider myself lucky in terms of me being involved in the swimming and the water polo world. I was sort of thrust into coaching kids and teaching them how to do tumble turns and dives and stuff when I was like 13, 14, just to help out on, you know, because the kids used to like the older players and stuff, and you know, they looked up to us, and I say older obviously at 13, 14, but I'm talking about 6, 7-year-old kids, and it was, you know, that sort of, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, you know, I'm seeing young kids here, you know, doing dives and getting their first tumble turn, or actually having the confidence to leap off the blocks and stuff. I was like, I like this. This is a, you know, it feels like you're giving back, as it were. Yeah. And it sort of fulfills something. And that's obviously where I just then continued on with that. And obviously when I went to college and stuff, got more and more involved in sports and coaching younger kids. And then obviously the older I got, you transition and coach older people as well. But it is that the give back, as it were. You feel like you're giving back to the public when you see someone complete something, when you see someone get their first pull up, or, you know, they hit a PR and they lift or whatnot. It's a good feeling to know that, you know, you've been at least a small part of that. So just going off that now, just transitioning through to you coming to Dubai. I know that when I moved to, I hadn't got a thought in my mind about even visiting Dubai on a holiday before I came here, and now I've been here nearly 11 years. Yeah. What was your turning
quite
point
similar, to be honest. Like I came over, I was with a gym back home that had like a network of gyms that I was programming for all the gyms, and kind of head of product, so to speak. So like helping make sure all the coaches are up to speed and all that kind of stuff. At the time it was lockdown in Oz, and I was the only person in like HQ that could leave and didn't have a family and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. We needed to get like travel exemptions and all. They jumped through a million hoops, but long story short, they asked me to come over for 3 to 6 months, a maximum, make sure the gym goes well overseas, because they had now sold the franchise rights to a gym here, so they're opening the first one here. So they obviously wanted to have some sort of control over that and just oversee it. Long story short, because I could go on about it, but it didn't really work out with that, and I was in a position where I either needed to go home and go back to my job and do what I was doing, or stay here and kind of rebuild my reputation that I had built back home, but here. Yeah. And that was a bit scary, but I remember being on the phone to my mum, and it was literally the day before my flight, and she was like, if you think you're going to get on the flight and regret it, don't get on the flight. Like, just stay. So I thought, you know what, I'd met a lot of friends here, and I was like, I'd made a lot of good connections. I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay, and I'm just going to figure it out. I was able to get a job here coaching at base, CrossFit box, and as you know, I started training at Goliath pretty much straight away. Army brought me to Goliath, and at the time, like training-wise, I was just getting into CrossFit. Like I said before, I was training more of like a functional fitness, like what you would call now, we'd never called it that back then, but hybrid style athlete. Like, honestly, it was just CrossFit, but without the Olympic lifting, without gymnastics. Like, just work hard engine work, hard strength work, lift heavy.
Bit of grunt work.
Yeah, and just like real simple strength and conditioning. And that's what my background is anyway, especially coming from footy, is just strength and conditioning, squat, press, hinge, a lot of different movements, more athletic based, and training to be an athlete without being the athlete, if that makes sense. Yeah. So then, I kind of transitioned into CrossFit, and Goliath was the first ever CrossFit box I'd trained at. I'd never trained at a CrossFit box before. I used to just do like CrossFit in a random normal gym, you know. So that was my transition to here, and then I've been here for 4 years now, and it feels like a year ago that I did that.
Any regret?
No, not at all. No.
And I ask you that because for me as a Brit, there's no regret from me, because I love the UK. I feel like I'm quite patriotic, especially, you know, having represented my country myself for so long. You know, I loved, you know, playing for my country, but the lifestyle there is so different to here, and it's easy for me to make a decision based on the sun makes me happy, the warm weather makes me happy, and the environment that I'm in, the routine that I've got here, makes my life so much more enjoyable. I don't think I could have that back in the UK based on simple things such as weather.
Yeah.
You know, it can get really miserable back home with the cold, with the wet. But from your instance, you know, in your case, especially myself having lived in Oz, I know how good Oz is, and I love Australia as well. Like I like, after living there back in 09-10, I wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I didn't was because the national team turned around and said, if you want to continue playing, you've got to be in Europe because it's cheaper for us to get flights back and forth. So obviously I made that decision to come back, and unfortunately I've not been back to Oz since, but I love it there. So for me, it's the opposite. I'm like, oh, you're crazy to stay here and not go back to Oz, because it's such an amazing place to live.
Yeah, I think like there's pros and cons to every place and every situation you're in, and I think my mum like really simplifying it like that for me, and me thinking like I didn't want to go back and think, oh, what if I had stayed there? Like, what would have happened?
Yeah.
What opportunities could have come my way? And I think another thing that did influence it was obviously COVID and lockdown. The day after I left, everything reopened. And like, so when I came here, I always tell people, it was like, I came here and it was completely normal. It was like stepping into Narnia. I was like, holy, what is going on? Like, and it was just this cool place, like land of opportunity. And I just thought it's something that not many people do get the opportunity to do. And growing up, I wasn't necessarily like in a wealthy family or earning a lot of money and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, it's very rare that I'm going to get the opportunity to do this. Even if I do it for a year and I go home, home's still going to be there, you know. And I think the thing for me as well that was also enticing is like I'd not done much travel outside of Asia and Australia, so
because you're so far away.
Just so far away, and again, like I couldn't afford it, you know. And when I left school, I was like, I either go and do a gap year and I'm in debt for the rest of my life, or I go and get a job, which is what I did. Yeah. So I think that was a big part of it, being able to travel, but also like. In Australia, like Australia is the most amazing place, and I probably will end up back there one day, especially if I want to start a family and all that kind of stuff. I would love to raise kids in Oz because it's the best place, I think, to raise kids, and I'm obviously biased, but there's so many positives to having kids there, and I think that's where I will end up. But I think as well there is this thing, and I'm not too familiar with it now because I've not been there for 4 years, but historically we call it tall poppy syndrome. It's like people, you're doing well or you're trying to pursue something different or put yourself out there, and people just chop you down. You know, and it's like, oh, why are you doing that for? Like, the one regret I do have is just moving over here so quick, and like I never even went home to like get stuff. Like I had someone coming over, they just brought me all my stuff. I didn't get to say goodbye to all my friends properly and explain my decision and all that kind of stuff. So that would have been, I've done that since going back when I went back for Torian. But I think doing that a bit smoother would have been better, but then again, I probably couldn't have afforded to fly all the way home, fly all the way back, and then set myself up here. So I don't really have any regrets in terms of doing it, and I love my life here now. You know, I've got a lot of opportunities, I've got a lot of friends, and it's been fun it's taken time, but it's been fun to rebuild a bit of a reputation and a brand for myself in a new place that has so many opportunities. And I see the industry here, the fitness industry here, is like Oz was 5 years ago. It's really growing, it's booming, it's popular, so it's cool to be a part of that and see how that grows.
Yeah, I think that unlike the UK, I think sometimes fitness gets pushed down a little bit just based on the fact of it being cold and wet, and people don't, oh, I'm not going to go, so I can't, you know. Whereas here and Oz, you know, the weather's pretty decent most of the year. So people actually want to train all the time. There's more reason to train. There's beaches to go to. They want to look good on the beach. They want to feel fit and healthy. The fitness industry is actually very small here. In terms, you know, so I always call it like a bubble. And you know, a lot of people know everyone. You know, most people know someone at this run club and that run club and this run club and this gym. And I think that's great because you know then it builds a community of fitness as a whole, not just like a CrossFit community, a running community. You know, and I like that crossover, as it were. And I think that's another reason what's kept me here. I only came over here on a 3-year contract, and I've never looked back.
I think as well, like here, I always say this, like, and I only realised this not long ago. it's no one's home really.
No.
Like that, so everyone's real welcoming, and I've always said that there's enough people to go around in any place for this gym to have X amount of members, this run club to have X amount of people come to it. Some people from that gym go to this gym, interact. If the moment you have like a competitor mindset in the fitness industry, I feel like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I think it's open, every gym should be open doors for everyone, open door policy, and we're all trying to do, if we zoom out and we're all genuinely doing what we say and what we act like we are doing by being in the fitness industry, and that is trying to give people a better quality of life and all that stuff, it shouldn't matter to you whether they're going to this gym or that gym.
Yeah.
You know, like it should matter what they're doing and whether they're training. And that's hard because as business owners or managers, or as soon as you're brought into the business side, it obviously becomes a bit more financial. But then I feel like sometimes you need to zoom out and think like, oh, they're still making themselves better. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm always a believer of, I've never really been one to chase financial goals. Like, the more money you got, the more you spend. Like, that's, most people are going to do that, you know. Yeah. But for me, as long as I'm comfortable, it's why I'm in the fitness industry is not because of money. And if you're in the fitness industry for money, you're probably in it for the wrong reason, you know, and it's not the most high paying job. So I think, like you're saying here, it's really cool to see like people from all different communities. Obviously the fitness industry is still the fitness industry, just like any other. There's going to be some better people, some worse people in those scenarios for those sort of reasons, whether it's like, I don't want them to go to this gym or that place, but everyone here as a whole is quite accepting and welcoming, and it's really refreshing to see, because it's like we all kind of realize subconsciously like this isn't our home, so let's try and make it as safe and as like fun for all of us and feeling as welcoming as possible for all of us, which is cool.
I just see it as well, like as a coach, like you know, the main aim as a coach is to help people. Yeah. And obviously, if someone, you know, if someone ever, I don't think there's any point in trying to pull down any of the gyms and stuff, because they're trying to do the same thing. And you're right, like it doesn't need to, there are plenty of people here in Dubai. I think we had like 250,000 new people move here, you know, the start of the year, or September or something for the academic year. That's 250,000 people. There's nowhere near enough gyms to accommodate for that many people at all. Exactly. So there's always going to be, you know, more people coming from overseas and whatnot, and wanting to start a new journey. And that now brings me on to your journey. Let's start with your CrossFit, because I feel that you've had like quite a cool arc, as it were, with your CrossFit journey. I was there when you first started coming, and remember watching you struggle to do ring muscle ups, and then, which is absolutely fine, like, but you worked really hard.
I couldn't even do one.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point. Everyone has that starting point, but to see your journey from not being able to do a ring muscle up to then go into, you know, the semi-finals and the CrossFit Games semi-finals in Torian and in Rebel in South Africa. That's an amazing journey in itself, and it's an amazing accomplishment as well. So, you know, credit to you for that. And I've always said that I've always been one to stand behind you and say, mate, the workload that you've put in to get from point A to point B at the moment is phenomenal, and your work ethic has been great to watch in terms of your training. I basically want to talk now about that training journey and how you found training for CrossFit, and then how you sort of took your opportunity. So I'll use touring as an example. Obviously, touring, you got the backfill, and then you took your opportunity to go there and learn and gain experience from that. Yeah. Then the year after, you then qualify for the semis directly to Rebel. You know, how different do you feel you were as a person? How different do you feel like your character was, you know, going through that journey from zero to hero, as it were?
Yeah, I think, like, to be honest, mate, like that starting period, like when I was starting out with CrossFit, I actually really struggled mentally to, like, I was a bit embarrassed, you know, because I was a coach and I was quite fit, like from a running or a machine and engine point of view, like everyone knows me for my engine work, and I was relatively strong, but I couldn't snatch over 80 kilos. I couldn't, all this high skill stuff, I couldn't even do a ring muscle up, you know, I could barely handstand walk. And so, like, being in the gym and being a coach and like knowing that everyone's just watching me fail time after time, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, this is bull. And I didn't want to be known as that person who like, I wanted to get rid of the but. Like there's always going to be one, but I wanted to get rid of, oh yeah, Jake's like fit, but. Yeah. And it wasn't because of what anyone else thought. It was just because I wanted to be as good as I could be. And I'd chosen like, right, I want to get as good as possible at this thing. I've always, and I'm sure we'll get on to talk about this in the future as well, we'll come back to it, but I've always really enjoyed being a bit of a novice and like having to learn and put a lot of craft and effort into the craft, because then you can look back, like now I could jump up and do 10 ring muscle ups and I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes when like, even having a conversation like this, I'm like, damn, I actually couldn't even do one. Like, and I wasn't unfit, like it wasn't like I'd never trained before. But being able to like go through all of the ups and downs with training, and then as an example, like starting to feel better, getting better, and now like one of my favorite things to do in CrossFit was ring muscle ups, you know, and like I think that really taught me as a person, like we said similar about when you're a kid, like being able to be taught certain things by fitness. That taught me a lot of things in terms of like patience, consistency, being disciplined, all that kind of stuff, because I always thought to myself, and this has always been my mindset, like if I put the time and effort into it and I'm just not where I want to be, then I can't blame myself for not putting in the effort. Yeah. Like I've always put in the effort, and I think, like I said earlier, that comes back to my roots training as a kid for footy. But yeah, I think once I started to see that progress, I was like, damn, this is a bit addictive, like you do, right? And then my goal when I got into CrossFit because I went and watched semi-finals or regionals back in the day. I can't remember what year it was, but it was the year that Calm Porter qualified, like right at the end. He did some crazy thing, and I was sitting there by myself in the stands like, this is cool. Like, typical story, right? And then I thought, I want to do the Australian like regionals one day. That's my main thing. And then I think it would have been 2019, I went to Torian and watched. And I remember just being like one of the last people in the stands, like, this is sick. Like, there's fire, there's all this like, and I was like, one day I'd love to be out there. So that was my main thing that like lit my fire to get better. And as you saw, like a lot of time and energy goes into it, but I loved every single second of it. And there's so many, that's kind of changed a little bit recently, but there's so much you can learn from being in the gym by yourself 99% of the time. And for me in CrossFit, it was a very different journey to a lot of people. I never went through like the going to a gym and doing the classes and then just starting to do stuff on the side. Like, I have never trained in CrossFit classes full time. Like, I'll jump in one here and there, but I think for me it was a very somewhat lonely experience, because what I was good at in CrossFit I was not very strong. So I had to do a lot of strength work, which meant I didn't do much conditioning, which meant I didn't get to do the fun stuff, and I didn't get to train with a lot of people. Because no one really wants to just come in and do some accessory work in the corner. They want to do the fun workouts. Yeah. And you saw, like, I would come in every day and just do my strength work and work out here and there and leave. And it was just the same day in, day out.
Yeah, I mean, that is the beauty of CrossFit, really. You don't have to be the best at every single discipline, but you have to be good across the board to be towards the top. You can be one of the best runners going, but if you can't lift, to within 90% of, or 85 to 90% of what the top lifters are lifting, it just drops you straight back down again. And it's one of those things where there is so much to work towards. And I think that's one thing that drew me in, was just the same thing. I want to learn to do a handstand walk. That looks cool. I want to be able to say I can walk on my hands. I want to be able to do a ring muscle up. And the fact that you've gone from zero and not been able to do it also proves my point of people can, sit at home all day long and watch someone do something on TV and say, I could do that. I can do a pull-up, so that must mean I can definitely do a ring muscle up. It's just not the same, and it showcases the effort that you have to put in to be able to do these movements. And obviously then, you get a much more greater appreciation for the training itself when you have to go from nothing to learning.
That also, like, the other thing I also hear is like, you can do ring muscle ups as you're like, of course I could never do that. I'm like, bullshit. Yes, you could. Like, if you put the time and effort into it, what's the difference between, and people don't, like, I've said it to you in the gym before, and I'd be like, ask Mikey, I couldn't do ring muscle ups. I don't believe you. I'm like, what, you think I was born, come out of the womb with dumbbells in my hands or what? Like, that's not how it works, Like, you have to put in, I'm the same as someone who was starting out, we were the same. Like, you just have to put the time and energy in. So for those people that are like, oh, I could never do this, I could never do that. You're just giving yourself a glass ceiling, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big thing that CrossFit can teach people. And I think for me, what I also loved about CrossFit was it keeps you humble. Like, I was obviously quite good at some parts of CrossFit, like running, like you mentioned, engine work. But even right up until my last competition, Rebel, I won the running event in the morning. The next event, I come dead last. Yeah. Like the snatch, the heavy snatch.
It shows up and down, doesn't it? And I think that, I mean, I can attest to it myself. Like, I can happily say that there was one point where, you know, I was back in my fitness career, and CrossFit had been around a couple of years, and I hadn't really paid much attention to it because I was still playing water polo at the time, so that was my focus. But I was still working in gyms. And then CrossFit started to get bigger and bigger. It's probably around like the 2012, 2013. Obviously, then the regional started to get bigger, you know. And I remember being a normal PT and looking at stupid days. They're not pull-ups. They're not real pull-ups. Yeah. But then you actually try and do it with the timing and the rhythm. You're like, oh shit! Actually, this is actually quite difficult. And then you have to think about learning that skill as as one, like by itself, but then adding it into a workout with other movements. That then is another difficulty in itself, because, you know, I learnt toes to bar. My first open workout was 2018, and it was 8 toes to bar, 10 hang clean and jerk, 14 cal row for like a 20-minute AMRA. And I was like, yeah, I've got my toes to bar now. Comes to a workout when I've got a bit of fatigue, I was like, what's going on? I can't do that, I can't string them together. And I ended up doing like the first 2 rounds as like, you know, 8 and then 6 and 2, and then all of a sudden those 8 toes to bar became 2, 1, and it's like, oh man, I've still got such a long way to go. And it is, like you said, very humbling. Yeah,
it's humbling. It's also addictive. Like, depending on the person you are, like, that's what hooked me. You know, like I wanted to get better, and I wanted to keep that progress going because it's addictive, and because there's so many different parts of the sport, you can see progress in so many different ways. But then, like, it depends what lens you're looking at it through, right? Like, I'm obviously not competing in CrossFit anymore, but that doesn't mean that I dislike CrossFit. You know, like, for me and where I'm at now, I just am not as interested and don't have that fire burning as much as it was, you know. And I feel like I completed a lot of what I wanted to complete, and like I said, like, the main goal for me was that North Star was always Taurian. Like, and then I found once I hit that, like, that was one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. Like, going and doing that, and even though, like, I got to backfill that, I didn't care. I don't care, because I was like, I still earn to be there. Yeah. And going and doing that, like, I remember going out on the floor, I was like, holy shit, like, I'm actually here. Like, it would have been 4 years before I was standing there going, I'd love to be out there, and then one day I was, you know. So talking about
let's compare the two. So Taurian was 2023. 2024. And then Rebel was 2025. So one in Oz, one in South Africa. You, to me, and I'll say this, so you were 2 completely different athletes. What was your experience like at Taurian as a whole, but also as an athlete? And what was your experience like in South Africa as a whole and as an athlete?
Yeah, so I think, like, Taurian for me, like I said, it was like I'd made the Olympics. Like, I was like, holy crap, like, this is insane. And just the whole experience, I was just happy to be there, to be honest. Like, anything was a win. I could come dead last, I'd go off the floor smiling. Like, I didn't care. You know, I was there and I'd earned my spot, and my main goal for that weekend was I just don't want to come last, because I was the last qualified athlete. So I was like, if I don't come last, I got better, you know. As an athlete at that point, I was not very healthy. Like, I was injured. And if I look back now, like, I don't know how I had really bad patella tendonitis in my knee. And
do you think that was overtraining? Or?
I think it was just not managing how much, I wouldn't say overtraining. I would say, like, I wasn't managing the load that my body could handle, and I was trying to do as much strength work as possible to get stronger, but it ended up being, like, there's a point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, and not recovering from it.
And just, like, little things with my movement quality and that kind of stuff. But I was lucky enough, working with my coaches at the time and my physio at the time, Nick, like, to be able to get to a point where I could compete. Yeah. Did I take anti-inflammatories? Yes. But, like, this is the thing that, which I'll get onto in transitioning away from CrossFit, but that point there, like, I remember I did the front squat workout. There was a front squat workout with 100 kilo front squats, double unders, all this, and I hadn't really squatted for like 6 weeks, and I didn't tell anyone I hadn't squatted. I just hadn't squatted.
Yeah.
And when you haven't squat for 6 to 8 weeks and you do 50 front squats at 100 kilos, your legs are cooked.
Yeah.
And then that night, like, we had a box jump over workout, ended up coming like 3rd or 4th. And I was like, what the hell? I couldn't even like stand up after the workout before. So the whole experience taught me that you can do a lot with adrenaline.
Yeah.
But again, I was just happy to be there. And there was so many experiences I had. Like I won my heat in one workout, which was an insane, like I couldn't have asked for that weekend to go any better, even though I came like 28th, whatever it was, and I was able to go with 2 mates, Jack and Mike. Like we hung out all weekend, we trained together a lot before it. It was just like the perfect experience for me. And after that, I was like, my fire was lit to do it again. But then the season, as always, that it does with CrossFit, it changed.
Yeah.
So the next year I wasn't doing Torian. I was doing Africa.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, like, this is great, but it's not Torian to me. You know,
Yeah.
like Torians was the games to me. Like
Yeah.
I didn't, obviously I would say that I wanted to make the games looking back now, but if I'm honest with myself, now I realize I didn't. I wanted to just, like, Torian was the main thing.
Yeah.
Because I also got to go home and see my friends and be around everyone again. And that was a really cool experience for me. So I think, like, experience-wise, Torian was amazing. As an athlete, I was way, I wouldn't want to say worse, but I wasn't where I was last year, 2025, at Rebel.
Yeah.
And after that experience of competing unhealthy, it taught me that no matter how fit you are, if you're not healthy, you can't express it. So then in the next season, I kind of changed my focus away from, like, I need to really hammer. I changed coaches, and I wasn't just hammering my weaknesses. I was also still doing some of my strengths.
Yeah.
Some, because Kyle would never let me run. But like, I was doing a bit more CrossFit. I was doing the sport more, and I was healthier. I wasn't just hammering strength. And we did a big focus on getting healthy again, like taking a step back, dropping my volume, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because my last competition in CrossFit was the only competition I did healthy. And like that showed because I was able to actually express my fitness.
Yeah.
And I think as an athlete at Rebel in Africa, I was also extremely lucky as an experience point of view. I went over 2 weeks early with Sarah and Luke, and we were able to train and sort of like live together for 2 weeks, which was sick. So across both competitions, I had great experience around the competition. But in Rebel, I performed a lot better, but like the fire wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was a bit like, okay, like I won an event, and in the moment I was like pumped, and then afterwards I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like that first time at Torian kind of feel, and after the weekend in Rebel, I kind of realized, like, I think like my fire's not there. Like I didn't even really want to go back and train CrossFit. I was like,
what do you think that was, though? Why do you think that was? Was it like a motivational point of view? Was it you just weren't enjoying the sport? Or?
I think I started to struggle with, like, the thought of how much time I needed to put in to get to where I would want to go, or like not even want to go, to get to the next step after semis, being the games. And I struggled with, I don't necessarily really want to get there that bad. So why do I go and put in, at the time I was already in the gym like 4 to 6 hours a day, whether it was movement work, training, whatever, and sacrificing all this stuff. And I thought to myself, like, what for? I'm actually not that fired up about making the games. It doesn't light my fire that much.
Yeah.
And I think for me, because my North Star as soon as I got into CrossFit was Torian, once I hit that, I didn't realize until I did another major competition, like, oh, that was it. Like, that was the top, and I think that's something I struggled with because I kind of didn't want to accept it. I kind of wanted to just be, okay, well, the next step is let's go to the games. Like, I didn't really light my fire that much, and I thought I've achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I didn't necessarily want to keep pursuing CrossFit, but I obviously love training.
Yeah.
And I think, it was hard as well because I was starting to think, like, all right, I've done 2 hours of freestanding handstand push-up practice every day, every week for the last 2 years, and I've never done them in a competition. So like, how much fitter could I be if I spent that time actually doing fitness, you know? And that's just a part of the sport. I think I started to, I don't want to say fall out of love, but I started to not enjoy as much just being average at everything. Like I wanted to be good, like I wanted to be as good as I could at something, you know? And in CrossFit, I was always going to be chasing my tail because I just needed to keep getting stronger and stronger. And my body was breaking down. Like I had to do a lot of work to stay healthy. Obviously, CrossFit's quite high impact. I'm not exactly a typical build of a CrossFitter. And I think that played a role as well. But at the end of the day, I think like the drive and the want to want to keep doing it wasn't there. So I've just sort of pivoted and I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So obviously at the back of Rebel, I was lucky enough to be there. I was lucky enough to actually, you know, comment on your experience, as it were. I got a bit of jip from a lot of people saying, "God, all you're talking about was Jake." I was like, "He was winning the event. What do you want, who else do you want me to talk about?" Of course,
Hey, you weren't talking about me in the snatch. That's
but do you know what I mean? Like, it was like that. You know, of course, I'm going to talk about you at that point because you were doing so well in that event. I knew it was in your wheelhouse, and yes, it's in your wheelhouse, but you still had to execute. So I was going to talk about you, obviously, because you were leading the majority of the time you were on the camera, and I'm not going to talk about people that aren't on screen. And it was warranted. You deserved the attention that was there because you were doing really well in the event. And I think that for me, I remember watching that event, and even while I was commentating, you know, I was like, he needs to do something endurance based. He's got, you know, you've obviously done so much running when you were younger with your rugby league, with all your shuttle runs and stuff, and the amount of running that you do have, you're on your feet all the time. You know, it's sort of the muscle memory is built into you. You're not necessarily learning a new skill like in CrossFit and having to spend so much time just doing the technical aspect of it because it's already there. And obviously we've had conversations since, and I've said, you know, you need to do high rocks or you need to do this, and obviously you've now sort of taken that leap, as it were, away from CrossFit. I know you still do some CrossFit workouts and stuff as a bit of fun, and but now your focus is more so on the, I don't know what to say, but again, I don't want to use the word hybrid, because, you know, this kind of training has always been there, but you are now more focused on the running side of things, on the endurance side of things, on fitness racing, let's call it that. I know that obviously there's not been a high rocks in this region for a while now for you to do, but I think that you said that you are now going to do one in London, maybe?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a ticket to, it's actually sold out, but I'm going to try and get one to London. The goal is this year to do, I've got a lot of goals this year in terms of training.
Yeah.
I think pretty much after Rebel, I like I said, I kind of had a bit of time and I had a bit going on in my personal life and all that kind of stuff, and it just made me reflect on like what I'm actually doing. And obviously when you compete in CrossFit, you spend a lot of time that you obviously can't put into other things like work and relationships and friendships and things like that. So I think it kind of, I just said to myself, I'm just going to train whatever I want to train. Like I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I didn't immediately start having goals. I just thought, this was June, and I thought just for a couple months, I'm just going to do what I want.
Yeah.
And I went back to like my roots, like what I was doing before I got into CrossFit, before I came out to Dubai, just strength and conditioning. Like I would do strength session, machine workout in the afternoon, run, strength session, like just a mixture of stuff. And like, I feel like I've been doing high rocks before it was even called high rocks. Like back in 2018,
I used to call
2017.
circuit training.
Yeah, like
that's
it's just
how
functional fitness, right? And they've just made a race out of it. And I think like, that's why I still, like you said, I still would do some CrossFit, but I wasn't doing CrossFit all the time. I was doing like 4 strength sessions a week. I will always keep a strength session, training approach, no matter what I do. I just feel better. I'm obviously, compared to people that do high rocks and marathons and endurance stuff, I'm a bit bigger.
So you're much heavier, I would say.
Yeah, and that's something I've kind of lent into because it's where I feel my best. If I get lighter, I feel fragile, and I like to have a strength base. My body just functions best from it. I've been doing it for so long, but I think I then got into that, started running, and when I was doing CrossFit, like people don't necessarily believe it, but I never ran. Like you saw, I never ran, ever. Like, I think before Torian, for like 4 weeks, I would run once a week. And then like, same with Rebel. I did a bit more running in like the 2 to 3 weeks before Rebel because we knew the workouts.
Yeah.
So I ran a bit more in 2 to 3 weeks before that. But even like 6 weeks before Rebel, I wasn't running, you know, and it was great. Yes, I was a very good runner compared to a group of people that weren't good runners. Like CrossFitters historically aren't very good runners. And I kind of selfishly, if I'm honest, just wanted to do something I enjoyed because I love running. So I think it's partly because like, oh, you can't have this thing. I really wanted it. Like I wanted to do it. And when you're good at something, you enjoy it, you know, and good is subjective, but I think I wanted to go down something where I knew I didn't have anything necessarily holding me back. And I knew I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. And I think the other part of it as well is I wanted to get out of a gym. I wanted to not be in the gym, you know, and that's not a specific gym, that's just in general. Yeah. Like when you're always in a gym and you've spent the last 4 years, 12 hours, like anyone who knows me and knows Eliath, like if you wanted to find me in the last 4 years, you would just go to Eliath and wait an hour. I'll show up. Yeah. Like if I'm not there, I'll show up, you know. So I wanted to get out of the gym and running was a good part for that. And I really enjoy running.
We've also got great environment to run here, especially this time of year. Yeah. Like to be able to run down the beach. What better scenery do you want, really? And it's mentally, that's also a great place to sort of get a clear mind. And I won't necessarily say myself because I don't enjoy running as much, but I would go and do the same thing. But
I think that is a big part of running, right? Like I think people that are good at running, and this is the thing, people say, "Oh, you're a really good runner." I'm like, compared to what? Because if you compare me to Kipchoge, I'm terrible. Like I'm not, you know. But if you compare me to a group of CrossFitters, I'm good. Yeah. You know, so it's like you've got to be humble and realize everyone's at different levels, and there are levels to every game. But for me, the main thing was I wanted to enjoy it, and I wanted to. For me, thinking next is the next thing I wanted to do was endurance-based stuff, high rocks. I've always wanted to run a marathon, which I've done now, and for me as an athlete as a whole. People go into CrossFit because it's very well-rounded. And for me as a whole, I didn't want to be an athlete that in 5 years' time, I was just a 6-time, 7-time semifinals athlete. Yeah. Like, and that's not for accolades or anything. It was like for me to look back on my like athletic career when I'm older and think, I either just did semifinals 7 times, which is not just did semifinals. That's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there's a lot of respect that goes to someone or people who do that. For me, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah. I would much rather be 2 times semi-finals. I've done an Ironman. I've done a marathon in this time. I've done a high rocks. I've done this. I've done that, and put myself out there. And I think that comes back to, like I said, when we first started talking about training, I like to just be a novice in something and learn. And for me, that also comes back to my work, being able to take that to my clients and take the lessons I learn to them and allow that to impact them without them having to learn the lessons the hard way. And I think for me now going into the more endurance space, or if you want to call it hybrid space, you can call it hybrid space, but main goals are around, were around running straight away, because I thought there's no high roxes like you mentioned, which is something I really want to do. But my weakness in high rocks will be the running. So I can get better and get better prepared for a high rocks if I prepare for a marathon, you know, and I think I've always been someone who's tried to do or wanted to do things that scare you a little bit, and people are like, oh, you're going to do a half first? I said, no, screw it, I'm just going like full marathon, you know. And
how was that?
That was a really cool experience. Again, like something that was really humbling, because you got people run past you like, how the hell's that guy run past me? Like I remember at one point this lady ran past me pushing a pram. I was like, what is going on? Like, but it was so cool to experience something different. And for me, I'm just a big believer of just put yourself in the arena. Like don't hold yourself back. Don't wait for the perfect time. Just go for it. Like I definitely, this is the thing, you're always going to want more. If for example, I want to get a sub 3 hour marathon. I knew realistically it's not going to be very easy to do first marathon, but I'll go for it anyway. Why not?
Mate, your time is still impressive.
And that's the thing, like even if I had have got sub 3, I probably would have just turned around and gone, oh, okay, now I'm going to go for 250. Yeah. Like you always want more. Yeah. So like the outcome can't be the main thing, you know, and that is very cliche, but I think like the process of preparing for that was really a humbling experience, and I learned a lot from it to take into the future.
What do you think's got to change do you think anything's got to change in your training for you to get that sub 3, or do you think it's solely down to your physique in terms of weight? that you're...
I don't like to use the weight as a thing, because there's plenty of people out there that are running sub 3 hour marathons that are bigger than me or the same size as me, and I don't like, even in CrossFit, I never made the excuse of like, oh, this is harder for me because I'm 6'2" and 95 kilos. Like, there's also things that are easier for me. So what goes around comes around, especially in CrossFit. But I think like, for me, it was more so just that I've not been doing it long enough. I started running consistently at the end of August, and I did a marathon in December. And I didn't start a marathon prep until about 10 or 11 weeks before the marathon. Yeah. And even now, I was running 3 days a week, which for me, that's a lot. Yeah. Like, I was like, shit, I'm running 3 days a week.
So you think the volume's just got to go up, basically?
The volume's just got to go up, but I'm kind of glad I didn't do it too quickly, because I probably would have got some sort of injury or niggle or anything like that. And I think I am built more for the endurance space. Like, my body feels great. Compared to when I was doing CrossFit, I feel 10 times better. And that's not a knock on CrossFit. That's just, I think, what agrees with me better and what I'm better built for. But I think in terms of the training, I just need to do more time on my feet. I was probably only doing, and I say this now, like, people think that's a lot, but if you put it into perspective, I was doing between 40 and 50 kilometers a week. Yeah. It's probably not enough for a marathon prep to go sub 3. It's enough maybe for a marathon prep to complete it, which I did, but I think, like, from my experience in the race itself, I got to a certain point, 32, 33 Ks in, where my legs just gave up. They were like, what the hell is going on? My heart rate actually started to come down at the end of the marathon, because my legs had just blown up so much I couldn't run fast.
So you weren't pushing the pace as much?
Yeah, I fueled well. I didn't have any issues with that. It was honestly just, I couldn't physically, if you had dangled a million deer in front of me, I wouldn't have been able to chase it. Like, I was... Yeah. But
so you said what 50k? Let's say it was 50k a week. What are we talking now for you to go sub? Are we talking double that, up towards the 100?
Yeah, I think like I would like to be between, and this is just going to be trial and error for me. I think I've recently started increasing my volume slowly. Last week I did my biggest ever week. It was 96 Ks in a week, and that's a lot. Like, it's obviously a lot of running, a lot of time. But I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they just do too much fast running. Like, a lot of that is just easy running. Yeah. And for me, like, easy running is sometimes harder because your body feels a bit like, not broken, but you just feel a bit sore, and your joints feel, especially being a bit heavier. But your heart rate's not that high. Yeah. You know, so I think that's already played a big role. I think I would like to be, depending on what I'm preparing for. At the moment, I'm preparing for Berge de Berge half marathon, so the distance is not necessarily a massive issue, but I'm also doing Dubai marathon the week before.
So you're probably feeling a bit of fatigue from that.
Yeah, and I'm pacing a friend in that, so I'm not going to be pushing for a time. But again, still want to be able to perform. And I think the main thing for me now is making sure I stay healthy so I can keep doing what I'm enjoying doing. Yeah. And for me, if I run more, my body's going to be more accustomed to it. And I think it's going to be less beaten up after doing races or longer distance things. And I think the more, it's like the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like, I've not done a lot of the 10,000 hours because I wasn't doing it. And then if I do want to transition into, all of these goals kind of transition into themselves. So if I do marathons and half marathons, then when I prepare for high rocks, the volume of running is going to be a little bit lower, can be a bit more intense. But then if I want to go into Ironman or things in the future, I've got that base of, I've done some marathon blocks before, I've got that base of running. Yeah. And like I said, I do enjoy it. And for me, I think like running is the number one way to, if I could choose one thing to do for fitness forever, it would be running, because it's like, you can't hide. You've got to move yourself from here to here. You know, it's like the most simple form of fitness. Like a rower, a bike, all these things, they have so many different things that come into it, but like you actually have to have the coordination to run properly. You've got to be able to have the fitness to run at certain speeds. And I just think it is one of the best ways to test your fitness. And it's not to say that I'm going to turn into a marathon runner, but I think going into marathons, half marathons, Ironman, half Ironman, that kind of stuff is where I want to go. Yeah.
In terms of the percentage, let's just think about the running as itself. What are we looking at each week now? So let's break it down, just so for people at home sort of know what kind of training you're doing. So how much of that running is just going to be solely just running to get volume in, as opposed to running at specific paces for shorter distances, interval style, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so usually it's a typical rule that a lot of people might have heard. It's like the 80-20 rule. So 20% of my running will be like speed work. Yeah. So either tempo or intervals. But the way I structure my running is like even my tempo and interval work, I've got a tempo run today. I'll do 10 minutes at the start and 10 minutes at the end as a warm up and cool down that are easy, because that's just extra volume to go towards time on feet, and it's going to help the session feel better.
And when you say it's easy, are you looking at your watch in terms of the pace that you're holding, or just
heart rate? I usually always wear a heart rate strap when I run. It's just the most accurate. But yeah, 80% of my running will be quote unquote easy. I use, not to make it too complex, I use a Maffetone method, so it's pretty much max aerobic heart rate. I find that's better than, or easier for people to control. I've found it easier myself and clients as well than zones.
Yeah.
And zone calibration and stuff can be a bit tricky. Super simple, like keep your heart rate, if you take 180 minus your age, keep your heart rate under that. So like, if you don't want to use a heart rate strap, or you don't want to, a lot of people get in their own head, they want to look all the time. If I came up to you in the middle of your run and spoke to you, you should be able to speak back to me.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you're going too hard.
Yeah.
So that's what 80% of my running will be, and that's something that's quite difficult for people to grasp, because some days that will be, for me, some days that's 4:30 per kilometre. Other days that's 5:10.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean that I might just be a bit more sore, might have not slept as much. So I try not to look too much into the paces. And the marathon definitely taught me, like, if you taper well and you feel good on the race day, I never touched anywhere near a 4-minute K in any of my long runs, and I held 4 minutes per kilometre for the first 30 Ks nearly. So if you taper right and everything, I think the time on feet is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's probably a shame really that you're doing the full marathon the week before Birch, because you could probably have a real good crack at a ridiculous half marathon time if you're
still going to try and give it my best at Birch to Birch. The marathon the week before, I'm not going to do much volume that week. I'm going to try and just get most of my volume that week from that, and then spend the next week just tapering and dropping my volume right down. The half in the marathon was, I didn't realize how fast it was until I got there, and I was like, oh shit. I just ran.
Yeah, I've just hit my half marathon aim, and
I just ran a 1:26 half marathon, and I've got another whole marathon. But like in my head, I was a bit cocky, like, I'm like 4 minutes ahead already. I'm sweet. Like I wanted to go sub 3, so I'm already like ahead. And then everyone always said like you're gonna hit a wall, and I did. But it's crazy how quick you can go from. And this is what I love about just competing. Like I say competing or racing, but I was just racing myself. Like, I'm not going to win a marathon. I'm not trying to win a marathon. I'm just trying to do as well as I can and set myself a goal in each thing. Like my goal in CrossFit wasn't to win the games. It was to go to Torium. Yeah. And I hit that goal. So then once I hit that goal, I moved on. Yeah. And I think it'll be a similar thing for marathons as well. Like once I hit that sub 3, yes, I'll want to get faster if I do another one, but I'll probably then shift the focus. Okay, let's do an Ironman and try and go sub 10, or like those kinds of things, and shift so that I can look back on my athletic career and go, damn, okay, I did a sub 10 hour Ironman, sub 3 hour marathon, qualified for semis, did a high rocks and went sub 1 hour, all that kind of stuff.
Versatile.
Yeah, exactly. Ready for anything kind of feel. And like, I think, like I said, the running at the moment, I'm not just going to be a runner forever, but at the moment it kind of bleeds into everything I want to do in the future anyway. And this year I do want to try and put myself out there and do as much as I can. Yeah. Because in CrossFit for a long period of time, like you compete and you train all the time to compete mainly once a year. Like, whereas now the shackles are off. You know, I can do a marathon and then do a half marathon.
Well, that was what I was going to come on to next. Like for me, like you were 27 now. Yeah. So in my eyes, you're still stupidly young. There's still so much ahead of you for you to accomplish. And with that in mind, like what are the goals for this year in terms of 2026? But also, what are the goals for beyond that? Like what is it now? You said that Torium was your your North Star before. What's next? Yeah,
so this year, like I've got 3 main goals that I want to hit this year, and then I said to myself, I'm not going to think too far ahead of that, because I'm sure that from achieving those goals, I will either set goals based on that or kind of tick something off and move on from it, So main one being sub 3 hour marathon. Yeah. I want to do this year I want to complete sub 12 Ironman. Yeah. And eventually I know that will go to sub 10, so Ironman will always be, in my future anyway, and a sub 5 70.3.
Yeah.
And then another main one is probably the main one is a sub 1 hour high rocks.
Yeah.
But the thing with high rocks is everyone is quick to gas you up. Oh, you should do a high rocks. You'd win. And I'm like you said before. I'm like, you can't have disrespect like that.
No, it's never that I think that you. I think that it's more. I see it as a sense of looking at your working towards your strengths. Because the way I see high rocks is, I know that you're a good runner, and like you said, I know that the run pace is probably something you need to work on in terms of the pace to hold all the way through. But I also know your strengths in terms of the actual movements in between, and I know that you can hold paces that are faster than what some people hold under fatigue. So, for example, I see some people holding a 4-minute pace on the rower for the 1K. I know that you'll be at least probably a 3:40. Yeah. There's 20 seconds saved there. And it's when you add little things like that up, if you can maintain a similar pace on the run, that's where I mean that. I just mean it in the sense of you're going to perform to your strengths. And I think as well that if you're in if you're racing with good people and, that's where the real race is going to come in, because you'll see someone. I know that under fatigue, you can do 100 wall balls unbroken. Yeah. And that's not like someone, doing 100 wall balls unbroken because they've sort of jogged around.
Coasted it, yeah.
I know that you can do 100 wall balls unbroken after, pushing everything. And I think that's what it was. I think it's not obviously that I'm not saying that you're going to go straight to the World Championships and win. I'd love to see that for sure. But I think it's definitely an area that you should definitely focus on and give it a good go.
Yeah, and it's something that I definitely want to go into because I know I can do relatively well. Not to be arrogant or anything, I think I can perform quite well in it. I did my first simulation of it a couple of weeks back. And honestly, it was fun. And I thought, this is cool. Like, it's something that is challenging. It goes in, but also I think it scares me. And like I said before, I like to do things that scare me a bit, because now going into this realm of like high rocks and marathons and stuff, more specifically high rocks, I think it kind of scares me because I know I can be good at it. Yeah. So and I know that, and people know that I can be good at it. So there is a little bit of pressure there, and that's something I kind of lean into a bit. Whereas like when I was in CrossFit, people didn't expect me to win the strength event, and I didn't. But so there was no real pressure there. Whereas now, like stepping into this space, as soon as I speak about it, people are like, oh, you'll do really well. So there's a pressure there, like I want to do really well for me, but also people are expecting it. And rather than letting that scare me away, I want that to scare me to go and do it.
Yeah, I think as an athlete, that's something you need to take on board. These are the kind of pressures that come with being an athlete. Yeah. It's not just your own pressure. There are external pressures that you'll face.
And at the end of the day, like if I go and do one and I don't achieve what other people think I can achieve or what I thought I could achieve, as long as I gave it 100%, that's all that matters to me. But I think like as far as goals and everything go, they're the main ones. The main three are the Ironman, the marathon, sub 3, sub 12, and sub 1 hour high rocks. And then based on that, like I've said to myself, if I do decent in a high rocks, okay, maybe I will do a couple more and focus on that a bit more and maybe try and qualify elite 15 or, and see where it takes me. I might do an Ironman and fall in love with that. And, so I just want to see where they take me. But for this year, I think that's enough on my plate for this year.
I think look, that's the whole thing with fitness and these kind of events. They are addictive, especially if you've got that personality and you're competitive. And it's an amazing thing. And that's going to bring. I've got 2 questions for you to finish. Right. First question is, what's a truth about being an athlete that people aren't ready to hear?
I would say that like mentally, it's one of the hardest things you can do. And I think mentally there's so many ups and downs that you don't realize carry over to life and the things you go through in everyday life until you go through the things in everyday life and the things as an athlete, you see the parallels. But I think people aren't ready to hear that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like it might seem cool to be an athlete, and I used to struggle with the term athlete because to me I'm not an athlete. I'm just good at fitness. Like I'm still a person, And I think what people probably aren't ready to hear is even if you're a great athlete, it doesn't give you a free pass. Like you still need to be a good person. And I think like that's being an athlete is kind of glorified. There's a lot of hard aspects to it as well, but I'm of the belief that people don't remember you for being an athlete. It's very rare they're going to remember you for being an athlete you were, unless you're like a Michael Jordan or whatever. They're going to remember you for the person you were. So I think like it's great to be an athlete and want to be an athlete, and people that want to do that probably don't want to hear this, but even if you're the best in the world at CrossFit, for example, you can just do burpees and thrusters real fast. If you're a dick, no one cares. Like that's, you know, so be a good person, also enjoy what you do, but yeah, it's a lot harder than people think.
And the last question, if there was one thing, what's the one thing you'd like the listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think if I look back on like my experiences and what we kind of spoke about today is like, don't be afraid to take a bit of a leap. And it's really cliche, but everything you do in life is going to, wherever you are in your life, that's because of you. It's not because of anyone else. So like, you got to take control of that. And I think whether that's like leaving a job or choosing to pursue something else or changing your path, that's all stuff you can control. And yes, there's going to be hard times, and yes, there's going to be down periods, but if you genuinely want to make a change, you can make a change. And like one of my favorite sayings is like, nothing changes if nothing changes. Yeah. And it's very true, but sometimes you have to have the balls to go and make that change. And I saw that really early on, like we spoke about, like leaving a trade and going into fitness. That could have completely flopped, and I would just be where I was 8 years ago. But I think if you really chase what you're after and you have a certain passion for something, you need to follow that. So I think hopefully people can get that from this conversation and realize like we're all just people. You just gotta, where you're at is just a sum of all the decisions you've made. So make the ones you want to make.
Love it. Mate, obviously I want to thank you for taking the time to come and chat with me. I think you've had a cool story, and I think there's still a lot more to be written for the future years. So obviously all the best with everything, all your future endeavours, all your sporting accolades that you want to go for. I'll certainly be there supporting you, and obviously when you do decide to take up Ironman, we'll get in the water together.
Yeah, so. I'll be calling you up. Need that for sure. But thanks for having me.
No worries. That's it for episode 1 of season number 2. So big thank you to Jake Hendry for coming in. See you in the next one. Peace.
Sweet.
That's it for episode 11. A big thank you to Jake for taking the time out to join me, and I want to wish him the best of luck with his future endeavours. Once again, it would mean so much to me if you could like and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification settings so you don't miss out on any of our future guests. See you all soon for episode 12.